This is the Fire Dog Podcast.
The views and opinions presented on today's episode are those of the speaker and do not necessarily represent the views of the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.
Welcome, my name is Matt Wilson, and thank you for listening to the Table Talk series on the Fire Dog Podcast. The Table Talk series is a free-flowing conversation between friends and peers on topics like reading, leadership, successes, failures, fireground tactics, and much more. It's the kind of discussion you'd have around the kitchen table at your firehouse. These are conversations we have all the time, and here at the Fire Dog Podcast, we thought it'd be worth recording and sharing some of them. In this episode, Chris and I discuss how to balance military and fire service obligations, where to put your attention throughout your career, starting with mastering your craft as a firefighter, as an airman. Before anything else, we talk about the importance of job proficiency as a foundation to leadership, how and when to build relationships across units, how to approach promotions, professional development, and how to choose extracurricular activities that matter to you and align with your growth and align with your personal goals, and also help people in the process. After you've listened, join us on our Facebook group, Fire Dog Mentorship, or visit us on social media at any of our pages to continue the conversation. So Chris and I today are going to talk about our thoughts, our perspectives on how to balance the responsibilities of a military member with the responsibilities of a firefighter. So, of course, I'm active duty, Air Force. I understand that perspective. Chris, Air Force Reserve, also a firefighter in Indianapolis. We have competing priorities. There's things that the military want of us that we're expected to do, that we see peers that are not firefighters in the military ecosystem doing things. How do we stay relevant in that ecosystem, but at the same time be a good firefighter for our communities, for our Air Force bases, be a good firefighting practitioners? That requires a lot, and some would argue a lifetime maybe of learning and experience to really get it dialed in. So how do I compete? How do I deal with these two competing priorities? That's a hard question to answer. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I have the answer to it, but I can tell you how I approached my career. I think that it did me well. I think I was able to balance both. I'm not done with my career yet. I think I was able to balance both pretty well. Had I not had one or the other, I could have been good at, just that one thing, right? I could focus 100% of my attention as being the best possible firefighter, but, I wasn't able to do that in this ecosystem, right? So that's what Chris and I are going to talk about today. Any initial thoughts, Chris?
I feel like this is an age-old dichotomy, right?
Yeah.
All career, my entire career, there's been, everybody can think of the high-performing firefighters who are not good airmen, and we can think of high-performing airmen who
Sure
may not be good firefighters.
Yep.
And it's a pretty common, topic of discussion or arguments of like, who should we be promoting?
Sure.
Who do you want in the seat?
Yep.
And so, I'm looking forward to getting into this.
Yeah, it is. It's a problem as old as time, and it's going to be a problem after this podcast.
Yep.
Hopefully, some nuggets we share can help people navigate the complexities of that. So I have some notes down of things, how to approach it. So where to focus your attention, how to integrate with the military and other units within your installation, how to approach professional and career growth, and then how do I integrate those extracurricular volunteer things that we know in the Air Force separate us when it comes to promotion. Everybody that's up for promotion, theoretically, is good. If you're at the top 10 of a promotion list, you're good in your respective careers. That's the assumption. You're a good electrician, you're a good plumber, you're a good firefighter. Now, how do I separate myself as a good firefighter from the good plumber? And in my experience, it's always those extracurriculars that make the difference. That's the game. That's the ecosystem we live in. A lot of people have heartache with that, and I can understand why. But it's not going to change the way things are, right? It's kind of the way that it is. I think that some high level restructuring would have to be done for that to change. But we're not in a position to do that, so we have to play the game the hands that we're dealt. So the first thing I want to talk about is, where do I focus my attention? I think and what I mean by that is, we have these two competing priorities. Which one should I focus my attention on? Well, it's dependent on what tier you are in the hierarchy. So if you're a firefighter, if you're a company officer, an airman, or an NCO, in my opinion, it's important to first be the best firefighter. You have to master the basics. You have to do the things that you're asked to do. You have to be thorough in your truck checkouts. You have to be intentional about your training. You really have to invest in being the best firefighter that you can be, because that's going to be foundational for everything else. If you don't have that foundation, like, that's what the Air Force hired you and pays you to do, is to be a firefighter for the Air Force, for the Marine Corps, the Army, whatever. If you're not good at that, then you don't have a solid foundation. I think that you can make up for it in other ways, but that foundation is not going to be there. And I think that that's detrimental to credibility as you climb the ranks. If you're not a good firefighter, you weren't a good firefighter, right? It's detrimental to your credibility. And then if you're asked to be a leader in a fire department, if you're promoted to the chief level, assistant chief, whatever, or a station chief, you don't have an understanding of the intricacies of a fire department. You don't know what it takes to move hose through a house. You don't know how to position the apparatus outside of a 2-story building. You don't know how to make room for the truck, the ladder. You don't know how those pieces integrate. I'm not saying you don't, but maybe you're not the best at that. So that's why I think it's important to first build that foundation, job proficiency.
I agree. And I think that's something that would be pretty controversial, right? If you were to survey, leaders all across the military, which should be prioritized ahead of the other, if you've got to pick one or the other. I bet it would be split 50-50, split it down the middle. But I totally agree from a prioritize and execute perspective, where in our career field, fighting fire is going to be, one of the most high risk, low frequency responsibilities that you have. And you need to be proficient at the things where lives may be on the line. Mm-hmm. Some of the Air Force stuff, maybe you're not a great EPD rider. The consequences are way less severe than, not being confident and capable of the things you should be as a firefighter. Mm-hmm.
What an excellent point. It's easy to become complacent because those things are, like you said, low frequency. They don't happen often. They may not happen once every 3 to 5 years. I don't have to worry about that. I can focus my attention in other ways. And many people do that. But in my opinion, you're playing with fire. Like, you have a responsibility. Some would argue the heaviest responsibility of any other career field. People expect you to solve their problems if they call 911. They don't call 911 thinking the fire department can solve their problem. They call knowing the fire department can solve their problem. Are you ready to meet that expectation? And only you know the answer to that. And that's a heavy responsibility. And so I think that really, that's the foundation of it is the customer, the people on base that expect you to put their fire out to save their home, or to perform CPR on their loved one, or whatever the case. And the only way that you become good at that is just continually practice, understanding that complacency, it's easy for it to kick in.
That's right. Every single fire dog has raised their right hand and taken an oath to, one, oath of enlistment, and an oath to protect those who serve. Right. That is the most important thing of our entire mission, that job proficiency. And I will say, I've heard a lot of people use that as an excuse for not being good at Air Force things. Right? They'll say, maybe they're getting beaten up for their EPB writing, and they will use not trying, they'll use that excuse for not trying to be good at the things they need to be good at on the Air Force side of things. But it's not an or conversation. I think we've talked about that on this podcast before, that you can be a good firefighter or a good airman. The expectation is that you're good at both. So don't use, prioritizing firefighting as an excuse for not being good at the things you need to be good at as an airman in the United States Air Force.
Yeah, I'm not a good writer. I don't have time to do it. You have to make time. You have to try. But I think you said it earlier, prioritize and execute. Prioritize those priorities, or the things that are most important. Number one being a good firefighter. And then you'll have time and opportunity to develop those other skills, those requisite things to be a good NCO or whatever the case. So I want to talk about also, how do we integrate in with other organizations on the base. So that's one of the requirements in the Air Force, is that I'm expected to integrate with these other squadrons and units to remain relevant, right, in this ecosystem, so that I'm promotable. I think that early on in the career, as a firefighter, as an airman, it's important, again, to focus on being a good firefighter first. As you transition to become an NCO, that's when it's time to build those cross-organizational relationships. So I think that this works on both levels. It helps you on the military and as a firefighter, because when you are called to an emergency, you're often asking for plumbers or electricians to help you out. That's when it's important to start building these cross-organizational relationships. So that's going to help you functionally, and it's going to help you in those other extracurricular pursuits too. You're going to know people. And I don't think that this is only an Air Force thing. Like, this is something that exists in probably every community. Like, I need to know people in the community to call upon when I need help with something, right? So, but I think that transition happens after you've built a solid foundation through the first 1 to 4 years as a firefighter. Of course, our timeline is much shorter than a municipal firefighter. 1 to 4 years, you build a solid foundation of learning every single day, focusing most of your attention on job proficiency, and then as you transition into a leadership role, arguably probably the hardest transition, I think, because it's the first time that you're in charge of people and not just yourself. That's when you start to build those cross-organizational relationships, again, because those people can help you solve complex problems beyond the firehouse, and it helps you with extracurricular activities.
Yeah, man, I think especially in the battle space that we're preparing for, right, where the future of, wartime firefighting isn't plopping down at Ali Osalim Air Base with 80 firefighters, doing structural firefighting. It looks very different. The whole, what's Wink always said,
agile combat implement. Oh,
yeah, the 2 senior airmen, the staff sergeant,
okay, yeah.
on an island with,
cold, naked, and afraid, or whatever.
Cold, naked, and afraid. Yep.
Yeah.
With a couple other airmen solving things that we're not used to solving, right? That are going to take relationships, not just with the squadron, but across any wing, to handle whatever we need to handle in that environment. That crosstalk and those relationships are going to be insanely valuable, and will absolutely make the difference between success and failure.
And again, this isn't something exclusive to the military. It's something that outside of the military is important too. I'm going through the Executive Fire Officer program through the National Fire Academy and talking to people who have nothing to do with the military. And this was a talking point in nearly every conversation. We're talking about leadership and leading yourself and leading an organization, and how important having a network of people to lean on is, having confidants, having allies, and people that don't understand your business and you don't understand theirs, or you're in a different organization. it's important no matter where you are. But as you mentioned, especially in a conflict with a peer adversary where we're expected to do this agile combat maneuver, go out to small places with fewer people, and a captain who's in charge and maybe a staff sergeant who's in charge. And it's you represent your function with two other people, and then there's a plumber with you and an electrician with you and a carpenter with you. How good is that relationship? And however good that relationship is going to really determine how well you guys can execute the job together and ultimately survive, if we're being honest.
Yeah, even in day-to-day operations, not even in a contingency environment, I feel like a blind spot in my career, or something that I kind of came into later, was the realization of how powerful relationships are for getting anything done. I had this kind of feeling early in my career that, if you follow the process perfectly, do what you're supposed to do, that things were going to play out the way they were supposed to play out. And that's not how they work in the civilian world. It's not how they work in the military. It's relationships, getting things done a lot of the times. And it's still important to be proficient at whatever process or whatever, system we're supposed to use to do what we're trying to do. But that relationship is so valuable. And for a lot of my career, I've been so laser focused on fire. I care about firefighters. And it wasn't until, really kind of recently where I've understood the value of that crosstalk across the squadron, across the wing, and how, as your career progresses, your responsibility kind of progresses in that regard, where you've got to have, a much wider view than maybe you do as the, staff sergeant in a firefight. Still love firefighters. That's still right here in my heart.
Absolutely.
But that can be a tough pivot to make, and I've seen that in my own career.
And I think it has a bad connotation, and sometimes people say, "Oh, I'm not political."
Right.
Don't think of it as being political. Think of it as helping your organization, helping the people that you're responsible for leading. Yeah, there's a political element to it, but that's life. Life is a game, and I don't mean that in a bad sense, but there's good choices and there's bad choices. The interactions you have with your family, that's a game too, right? Like in those organizational relationships, it's doing what's best for the collective, right? And then at the same time, taking care of those within your charge and under your responsibility and under your umbrella of responsibility, and ultimately what you guys collectively are doing for the mission or for the community. So, I say that because being political or having relationships kind of has a bad connotation sometimes, and it's not the way to approach it, I don't think.
I feel like it's almost the same dichotomy we talked about, with being a good firefighter versus a good airman, where when you advance in your career, the being with your firefighters and being with the squadron or whatever it might be, that people are going to be drawn one way or another, but you got to be able to do both. You got to be present in your flight. You got to be present in the squadron or in the group where decisions are being made, which is easier said than done.
It really is. That's something that I learned as I got to the executive level, let's call it, the deputy fire chief level. Your ability to have relationships directly impacts the people in your department's potential to promote. I mean, that you have their career in your hands, and of course they have to do what they have to do to put themselves in a good position. That's largely on them. They have to build that strong foundation and do the things they're supposed to do. But when push comes to shove, and we have a list of 10 people that we need to decide which 4 of these 10 are the ones we want to promote, the relationships you have with other senior leaders are so important in that determination. Like, you can make the difference between somebody, having promotion potential or not. Yep. And the same can be said about funding, or getting fire trucks, or getting new fire stations, and or if there's a problem with a response procedure and this organization doesn't like how we do business, or they want us to do a standby, and that's maybe unnecessary, and that there's other ways we can manage that risk. If I went in and with a bad relationship or a bad approach, try to be autocratic, I'm the fire chief, I'm in charge, and this is how I say we're going to do business, that's going to be met with resistance, and it's going to be detrimental to the firefighters downstream. You could be spending a lot of time out on the line when you shouldn't have to necessarily, to use that example as a standby. So it's important to approach it that way, that the relationships you build, they impact so much downstream that we don't even realize.
Yeah. There's this massive ripple effect that I feel like is easy to lose sight of. And I've got a good personal example for this. In maybe 2012, our fire chief at the time, very involved at the squadron, he wanted all the Air Force things done, right? We were submitting for every quarterly award, annual awards, we're scrubbing EPBs, all the things that, that are common things to gripe about. And I'm confident that I did, that I was the guy that was like, we should be out, pulling lines and, throwing ladders right now. Why are we?
Yeah, why we got to mess with this garbage?
I ended up receiving an annual award that made it to, I was applying at civilian fire departments, that made it to a chief on the Indianapolis Fire Department's desk. And I think, the little write-up that they always do for annual award winners, the chief has so many chief's picks in any hiring process. And it led to me landing my dream job. And I don't know that chief even knows it. He's long since retired. But when I think back to the ripple effect that came from, this chief being involved in Air Force things, relationships at the squadron, all of that, no doubt influenced, me receiving that award. And then this ripple effect that happened later down the line, put me in my dream job. And that may or may not have happened, without just little things like that all come back to relationships and engagement outside of, the firefighting activities that we all love, that led to this, massive thing in my life.
Yeah, it's a great example. You have to be well-rounded. And we want good firefighters. I mean, we do, and that's not what we're saying. We want great firefighters. I want the guy who knows hose in and out, knows what nozzle he wants, knows how to search. Like, you want those people, but you have to be well-rounded. You can't neglect the other things that are also important, and not just important to you personally in getting your dream job, but important to your subordinates. It's going to affect them and impact them too.
Yeah, it's important to recognize, we're really one of the largest fire departments in the world. When you look at DoD firefighting and our all the systems and processes and standards, where when people ask, do you want the firefighter that's most capable, or do you want the guy with all the certifications and all the PME? Well, of course I want the guy that's most capable, but we're in a fire department with standards and requirements, and we can't put that guy in the seat, right? Or whatever the situation might be. It's got to be this guy. And so both of those people have this responsibility to do both. The certification PME guy, you've got to be a confident and capable firefighter. If you're laser focused on firefighting, you got to be good at all this stuff too. There's no way around it. It's all order.
It's hard to do. It is. And I'm not saying that I did it perfect. That's not what we're suggesting here. Really talking about our experiences and having tripped along the way, like, hey, I want to be out pulling hose, man. I don't want to be messing with this stuff. Or leaning too hard in the direction away from the fire department and seeing the impacts of that. But it's a hard thing to do, but if you can start focusing on it early in your career, you're going to be that much better as you climb the ladder. And if you go outside of the military and do whatever you want to do, It's important to be balanced in whatever you do, and to understand the ecosystem that you live in, and to be balanced within it, while at the same time not neglecting yourself personally and those personal needs that you have, with your family and with whatever else too. So it's really a complex juggle. It really is. Talking about career growth, you talked about certifications. This question comes up a lot. So degrees, we all, I think, know collectively that degrees help your promotion potential, inside and outside of the Air Force or the military. So where should I focus my attention when it comes to professional development, career growth? And my answer is always, well, of course, it depends on where your passion is. If your passion is in the fire service, you really have to be introspective. You have to sit down with yourself and decide, what do I want to do? What am I passionate about? If your passion is in the fire service, then a fire service focused degree is going to be good. It's going to be beneficial to you. You're going to want to do it, and it's going to be beneficial to your promotion potential. A lot of people go after leadership and organizational management kind of degrees. Those are okay too. Those are good too. Of course, if you're passionate about it, go after those things. Some people don't want to do the fire service stuff, and that's okay. Just you have to understand that you're going to take a hit on your promotion potential, right? Because the Air Force wants to see how your development supports the mission. The things that you're doing, how does it support the Air Force, right? Like, you're working for the Air Force. The Air Force is paying you. You raised your hand. You signed up to do this. How is what you're doing helping the Air Force, right? It's okay that I saw a degree of it's like design, some kind of design, like computer-aided design or something like that. This was a EOD technician, and I'm looking at their records for promotion or for an award, and I see this art design. Like, this is what this man was passionate about, clearly, and that's okay. But if I have another EOD tech who has an EOD focused or an organizational leadership focused degree focus, then that person is going to get the edge up. So you have to understand too that think about the needs of the Air Force, but at the same time follow your passion. I know I said a lot there, but that's how you should approach specifically educational degrees.
I think about three elements when it comes to degrees and certifications, where there's like a trifecta if you can get all three at once. And it's study something that you care about. Mm-hmm. I'd say that's one of the most important things. Something that you're good at. Those may not be the same thing, right? You may care about something that is not a strong suit for you, and you may be strong at something you don't really like to do. But if you can get both, something you care about and that you're good at, and then add in the third element of what's going to give you an ROI, a return on investment, whether that's in your career field as a firefighter, whether that's once you're done in the military and you're moving on to something later in life. We did an episode with Ashante Owens recently that he mentioned being a licensed therapist that he was able to pivot into in retirement and build a nonprofit, using his therapy skills. Like, there's a massive return on investment there. So when you combine those things, something that you're good at, that you care about, and is going to have some sort of return in your life, in your career, that's the trifecta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough to do too.
Yeah.
Other credentials there's the CPSI credentials, so the Center for Public Safety Excellence. Of course, all your IFSAC Pro Board certifications. Those things, in many cases, are requirements. In some cases, they're not. But again, if you're trying to help out with your promotion potential, yeah, I would. And fortunately, in the Air Force, we have a career field education and training plan, and they have a civilian education and training plan as well. That it gives you the roadmap for what to do. So if you're wondering what direction to head and you want to head in the direction of the fire service and fire service and the Air Force, look to that career field education and training plan. It gives you a pyramid. What should my milestones be? And, make a plan to get after those things. But if it's something else that you want to do, go after that.
Man, hit us with, you mentioned you're in the National Fire Academy's Executive Fire Officer course.
Mm-hmm.
That's a massive commitment. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there was a lot of thought that, led to that decision to, pursue the EFO. What was kind of your thought process there, in the same vein of career development?
Yeah, I have a passion for public safety. I love the idea of helping the public, or being that person, being in the organization that the public calls on to help them in their worst moment. That's where my passion lies. And I don't know. Well, of course, I'm close to retirement in the Air Force potentially, and I don't necessarily know how I want to transition into the civilian sector. Right? I don't know if I want to stay federal or go to the civilian side, but I know I want to stay in public safety. So I have this general aim. I don't know what I want to do, but I know it's public safety, and so that's where I focused my undergraduate degree. I focused my graduate degree there, and it's the Executive Fire Officer course is just another milestone that I know would help my promotion potential, my job potential, and something that I have a genuine interest in learning about. So it was those two things, and it was coupled with my passion for public safety that made me want to go after it. I don't know how it's going to benefit me necessarily. Well, I know that I'm going to be better equipped with like leadership principles and things like that, because they really dive deep into like the complexities of leadership, and I really that interests me too, and how it relates to the fire service. So I know that it's going to make me better in that sense. I don't know how it's going to benefit me outside, but again, I have that general aim. That's why I went after it. So, and you don't have to do EFO to become a fire chief in the fire service. There's several that aren't, and it's not a requirement by any means, but it definitely helps that promotion potential, and that's one of the reasons that I went after it. And I love the experience so far. I just started out. I went to my first 2-week resident course, and there's assignments that you have to do ahead of going. There's assignments you have to do in between courses. There's 4 total resident courses. It's a graduate program. And there's books that you have to read. Like, to me, I really genuinely enjoy that stuff, and I genuinely enjoy like interacting with other people in the fire service that aren't military or aren't federal. And there's some federal. There was 2 other federal guys in my class. So, but I love that collaboration and just meeting new people too.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit on professional growth. How do I focus my attention there? It's a complicated question. Hopefully we give you some nuggets to point you in the right direction. It really comes down to what you're passionate about. And if the fire service is not what you're passionate about, I encourage you to go find what it is you're passionate about, or create that extra strategy. And you could even leverage the opportunities that the Air Force gives you in getting degrees and paying for them and things like that to help you in that pursuit. But if you're not passionate about it, you're not gonna have a good time. Which leads us into the last talking point, is extracurricular and volunteer opportunities. So, and this is probably one of the most contentious, I would say, is how do I couple all of that? And I think we answered that kind of indirectly, and that those relationships are important to getting things done and to your promotion potential. So I'd say with extracurriculars and volunteering, it's like I would pick quality over quantity. You see people kind of just spreading themselves thin, doing a bunch of things that because they just want to maximize their potential, right? They want to maximize their promotion potential. If I did 5 things and the other guy did 1 thing, then I'm going to have more of a chance. But that's not necessarily the case. Like, it really, again, the passion has to be there for you to do a good job. So really, you're doing a disservice to whatever you're volunteering for if you're doing 5 other things, right? You can't commit yourself to all 5 of those things and give quality. So I always say, do quality over quantity. Pick something that genuinely interests you, or something that's going to challenge you. I've done this in my career where I'm not so interested in doing that. That's not something that I would like to do. I've been knocking it for a while. Let me try it before I knock it. Let me go put my money where my mouth is. I'll give you an example. Like they have the professional development organizations, like Top 3, 5, 6, and those things in our Air Force ecosystem are really important to your promotion potential. And I had never, from the outside looking in, I've never saw the value in these organizations. I just kind of saw it as self-licking ice cream cones a little bit. And so from the outside, I was always knocking. I'm like, this isn't really any value added. But I decided probably 7 years ago, I was like, well, let me give it a shot. And it's something that's going to challenge me because you're leading peers, and maybe something that I can make a legitimate value impact with. And so that's what I did. I think that we did make some genuine impacts. I still think that those organizations could use some shaping at the highest levels of the Air Force, but that's how I approached it. And I did one thing, and I put everything I had into it, and that helped my promotion potential, and it helped me grow as an individual.
Yeah, man, the sense of purpose in any kind of extracurricular anything, whether it's Top 3, whether it's an organization that you volunteer with. Man, there's something out there that will give, anybody a meaningful outlet for their efforts, right? So find something that clicks with you. And I love what you're saying, that, the Top 3's mission or whatever that organization might be, you may not like going to those meetings from the outside looking in, but they're doing something worthwhile. And when you approach it as, hey, I believe in like the worthwhileness of this. How do we make it better? How do we, move the needle even just a little bit? Same thing with any organization you might volunteer with. Find that purpose, that thing that you're making just a little bit better than you found it. And I think when you lean into it, it really speaks for itself over, maybe somebody else that, volunteers at 5, walk for rabies 5Ks, or you know what I mean.
Is that an Office reference?
Right.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, we talk about the Top 3, the 5, 6, and those things within the Air Force. I think similar versions exist, and this is not me speaking from experience, but from having talked to people. I think it was Mikey Ott, so he's fire chief at Tulare Fire Department in California, former Air Force firefighter, retired senior master sergeant, and he was talking to me about the Rotary Club. And when he was hired on, at some point near around when he was first hired, it was the city manager, the mayor, or someone who was like, "You going to the Rotary Club meeting?" Like, that was important to them, And it's so, we talk about it and we don't like it, maybe in the Air Force in some cases, but man, politically speaking, again, back to those those cross-organizational relationships, sometimes these organizations are like a good opportunity to bring the community together and like talk about the problems that you're having in your function. In the Air Force, if I talk to a maintainer about the issues that they're having with hot breaks or maintenance issues or halon fire extinguisher, like, now that's a time where we can collaborate on these collective problems, and it's important to commanders or city managers too at the same time.
Yeah, I think of it from a there's an iron sharpens iron element to it too, where generally people that are doing anything extracurricular, are not interested in the minimum standard. A lot of times they're high performers with relationships or aspirations, whatever it might be, beyond the minimum that's being asked of them. And those are the kind of rooms I want to be in and the people I want to associate with. And so, kind of when I think about my purpose for, there's a nonprofit, Firefighters on a Mission, that I've been involved with for, this will be the 14th year, where we raise money to fight homelessness in Indianapolis. Every single year, it brings together good people to do a good thing. And that's it. That's the whole purpose. I want to do good things with good people. And we accomplish that every single year through this fundraiser that we do. And I think when you kind of distill it down, to that just simple sense of purpose for whatever you're doing in whatever organization, I think the results will speak for themselves, just in the good that you're able to do, and the ripple effect that'll happen throughout your career by being involved with organizations like that and being associated with people like that. Again, another one of those things that kind of happens below the surface. It might not be really obvious day to day, month to month, year to year, but there are serious dividends that are paid by kind of paying it forward. And that's not why you're doing it, but it
shouldn't be.
That's absolutely a truth. That there's something to paying it forward, in anything like that.
Yeah, so I think really the key point here is with extracurriculars and volunteering, whatever it is, you have to have some level of passion for it, or know that there's some good that could come out of it for not just you, but other people. It's going to help you, yes, with your promotion potential. It's also going to help you develop, again, like you said, iron sharpens iron. But there has to be some benefit downstream for other people too. That's what I always tell people in the Air Force is find that one thing, and I say one thing, and sometimes it's two, but try one thing first. Just try it, and see what kind of good you can do, and see how you can grow, and approach it with a genuine sense of wanting to do something good. And do that. And if you don't like it, then hey, you gave it a shot, and you're probably going to grow from it in some form or fashion. And that's what happened to me personally. Like, I grew from these experiences in the professional development organizations. And to be honest with you, I came out of it and not wanting to go back into it. So I did have that experience where I gave it a shot. I met great people. There's other good people. These people are genuine, and like you said, they're the best of the best. That's not what you said, but you surround yourself with other high performers, right? And you learn, like, oh, it's humbling. That's another element to this. It's humbling to know that, oh, there's other high performers. Like, we think of ourselves as high performers, and maybe we think too highly of ourselves in some case. So it's good to go check that with other high performers. Like, oh, this guy or girl is crushing things. Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am, right? And that's tough to the identity and tough to the ego, but you have to do that for yourself if you want the best for yourself in the long run. So it's beneficial on multiple fronts, and to get involved in things like this, I think. So that's my thoughts. That's Chris's thoughts on extracurriculars and volunteering. There could be a lot more said on it. I think there could be a lot more said on a lot of these things. Hopefully that gives you some purchase points to approach your career with. I think, to recap, it's first important to be a good firefighter. Be good because your community expects you to be good. Don't be complacent, because complacency kills. It could be detrimental to the community. It could be detrimental to your firefighters that are around you. And then once you have a solid foundation of being a good firefighter, build on it through cross-organizational relationships, through your professional growth, and then through volunteering and extracurricular activities. Anything else, Chris?
Nope. That was a perfect summary.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fire Dog Podcast. You can find more episodes like this on our website or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also on social media, connected with us at Facebook or on Instagram or LinkedIn at the Fire Dog Podcast. That is the Fire DAWG Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, like, follow to stay plugged into every new episode. We'd also appreciate it if you'd share this podcast episode with your friends and your coworkers, whether on social media or in your firehouse. This is Matt Wilson with co-host Chris Boykley. We thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Talk series. Until next time, stay safe.